It's a Merdeka Entrepreneur Special. Our guest today was a client to many successful entrepreneurs. Some say he was the true entrepreneur as he was the silent businessman, while others said he was a leader with a great vision. I'm Ben Ibrahim and this is Entrepreneur, and today we speak to Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, former Prime Minister of Malaysia. It's the Merdeka week and we've invited a true patriot onto our show. I'd like to officially welcome to Entrepreneur Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, former Prime Minister of Malaysia. Tun, welcome to the show and thank you very much for being with us, and Selamat Hari Raya.
You're welcome. Selamat Hari Raya.
Thank you very much, Tun. Now Tun, when you were in office, did you see yourself as an entrepreneur?
Well, I have done some little business before, but I thought I was starting something new, something that I was not trained to do, but it was an adventure for me. Maybe that is entrepreneurship.
During your time in office, from an infrastructure and commerce standpoint, what did the country really need?
The country needed policies which are business friendly. It needed changes in some of the laws which are restrictive. We had to use policies in order to encourage business, and as you know, we started what we called Malaysia Incorporated to bring business and the government together so that each will help each other facilitate the business and ensure success for the business. The government stands to gain from successful business. 28% profits of the company goes to the government by way of tax.
Now Tun, you were a client to many successful entrepreneurs back then. Now when you evaluated a tender, what did you look for? Or vendor, should I say?
I don't really evaluate a tender, but of course when a contract has already been given out, I follow up by going to the site to see whether things are being done properly or not. Of course, there are certain standards to be adhered to in order to ensure that we have a good project result. I used to get progress reports on all the contracts that have been given out so that I will know whether things are being done at the speed that we expected those things to be done.
And how fast did you want things done back then?
Well, I was always keen to expedite things. At one time, we decided that we should build a steel frame building instead of the usual concrete and iron building, because steel frame buildings are much faster to build, but they are more costly. We tried that at the Dayabumi and it really was fast, but we feel that even using the usual material, ferroconcrete, we can still achieve construction speed that is acceptable.
Now tell us about some of the vendors back then, without naming any names, the ones that made mistakes. What kind of mistakes did they make when submitting the tender, when doing the job, which let them down, which led to them losing the job?
Usually they made wrong estimates.
Wrong estimates.
And when they make wrong estimates, later on they get into trouble and they ask for an increase in the price of the building. Of course, once you sign the contract, you have to complete it. In the case of some of the small contracts, for example, when we were building computer labs, they actually submitted a price that they cannot actually complete the job, and halfway through they may give up.
Did that put you in a tough position that sometimes you just had to cut them if they didn't meet targets?
No, that is not a decision that I make. That is a decision for the implementing agency makes, maybe the public works people. They have to make an assessment as to the progress of the job, and if they find that contractor is not meeting the timeline, then it's up to them to make a decision.
Is that something that you encouraged in your leadership, that you told your people, look, if someone is not meeting the target, then you really have to evaluate them and maybe even cut them.
Yeah, that is standard practice really. If people cannot deliver, obviously we have to terminate the contract. But of course we have to know the reason for the delay also. Maybe there is a shortage of material or whatever, then we give due consideration. This is done by the implementing agency. It's very seldom that they terminate a contract unless of course the delivery was very bad. Well, some are very new, obviously they lack experience. On the other hand, if you just ignore them because they have no experience, then they will never acquire any experience. So sometimes we may be forced to give a small contract to someone who is not tried yet and evaluate what he has done. But for contractors who are well known, who have delivered in the past, because it's much easier for them to get contract from the government. Sometimes this creates sense of unhappiness by other contractors because they think we are favoring a particular contractor, but it's simply because they deliver.
Are you a firm believer in giving people chances? Like you said, sometimes they don't have the experience.
Well, you have to be judicious about this, but there are times when you feel you should give a contractor an opportunity to show his ability. If you keep on saying that, well, you have no experience, therefore you don't get a contract, then he will never get the experience. Sometimes takes some risk with these cases.
Times have changed. How would you compare entrepreneurs back then to today's entrepreneurs?
Well, I wouldn't know much about today's entrepreneurs because I'm no longer involved. But before, of course, we have a lot of casualties, but over time they acquire skills, and I think by now many of the contractors have had a lot of experience, and therefore if they are new, they can still be considered.
Now, Tun, if someone were to come up to you and say, I want to start a business, what advice would you give them?
Well, a lot of advice. In fact, I wrote a book for a small businessman because quite often they aim for a business that is not within their means, and quite often also they don't have any savings at all, and they wish to carry out a project without any capital, and that of course is not a very good thing to do. So we need to know what is your experience, what is your capital, what is your record, all these things we need to know.
Okay, and final question before we go for a short commercial break. On the flip side, if an entrepreneur or a business person who's tasted a little bit of financial success were to come up to you and say, Tun, how do I take my business from A to C? What's your advice for them?
Well, I think you should get more experience before you move upwards. You should show not just one success, but repeated success. Then you can be upgraded.
Well, Tun says, when you're starting a business or taking a business to the next level, work within your means and work within your experience and skill set. We're just going to take a very short commercial break right here on Entrepreneur. Well, when we come back, we're going to ask Tun more about business advice. Stick with us right here on Entrepreneur. Working within your means. That was the first business advice Tun gave us. Now, Tun, second piece of business advice. If you are working with a set of people and you wanted to evaluate a tender, what is the methodical process to do this? Like you said, you like your progress report. So what should a progress report look like?
Progress reports usually come with pictures of the work being done, so I can have an idea of what is being carried out, whether they are keeping to the time schedule or not. But of course, it is not I who will determine whether the contractor should go on or not. It will be the professionals, the people implementing agencies. They will evaluate, And in fact, they seldom come to me. They make their own decisions. But sometimes with major contract, they inform me about the need for them to terminate or to carry on or to call in another contractor in those days.
Now tell us about some of the successful entrepreneurs that you gave that chance to. At that time, they didn't have much experience, but they had the right attitude, the right desire, and probably the right skill set.
Well, I don't know whether it was a question of giving them a chance or not, but most of the bigger projects are carried out by people who have shown some experience and who have shown some success. Then their names are put on a short list of people who are capable. The agencies will then evaluate and recommend.
Do you get involved in those agency decisions?
No.
No?
I don't think the Prime Minister is tasked to do that. But of course, with very big contracts, you are informed. Well, it depends. If they are on the list and they are the best, any one of them can deliver well, then the agencies, I think, will recommend the person whom they believe will perform.
Did you see a lot of that behavior? Like sometimes people know someone at the ground level and you couldn't control everything, that they want to say, okay, I'll just give it to this person, not because they're my friend, but because they can get the job done. Did you encourage that sort of thing, or did you discourage it?
Well, when somebody fails, for example, they can appeal. They send copies of their appeal to me. Of course, I would like to know from the implementing agencies why they wish to choose this one or that one. If they give a reasonable answer, you have to agree with them.
When an entrepreneur tastes financial success, what should the next step be?
Well, he must be sure that he really knows the job before he moves up and tries something much more difficult or much more expensive. So experience is something that you gain over time. So you must acquire as much experience as possible before venturing into something that is new.
Do you miss being in office? Do you miss politics?
I'm still, I think, quite active in politics in the sense that I make comments about political situations.
Speaking about political situations or business situations, hypothetically, if you were still in office, what would you like to change from a business standpoint?
I think the present government is giving due attention to the private sector, and I think that would be something that should be continued. Perhaps find more ways of ensuring that the business people in this country do well.
Now, during your time in office, many people always said, look, government and business or commerce should be separated, like some countries.
I think the government should help business as much as possible. That was why we decided upon the Malaysia Incorporated concept. The thing that must be remembered is that when government helps, it is helping itself, because part of the profit belongs to the government by way of taxes. So you're not working for free. You're working in order to make the part of the profit yours. Well, it is great to see that the country has made progress and has been celebrating Merdeka. It is important that we remember that we were not a free nation before, that we are now a free nation simply because we struggled for independence. And having achieved independence, we worked hard in order to develop this country. So we should always remember that without being independent, it is probable that this country would not have made the progress that it has made in these years.
Well, Tun's Merdeka advice is remember where we came from, and at the end of the day, it's all about progress, progress, progress. Progress as an individual, progress as a group, and progress as a business. We're just going to take one more commercial break right here on Entrepreneur, but when we come back, we're going to ask Tun about reflections of business and reflections of government. Stick with us right here on Entrepreneur. They say reflection is a hallmark of a champion, and here with Tun, right here today on this Entrepreneur Special, we're going to ask Tun about reflections. Reflections on business and reflections on politics. So Tun, What was your biggest milestone back then, from a business standpoint again, when you were running office?
All the way through, we have encouraged business this country because business create wealth, and we need employed to become richer and to pay taxes to the government. So there is not one single thing that we can identify, except that we have been able to plan for our future and to implement the plan. I think that is what is important, because lots of people make policies and plans but could not carry out.
So implementation.
Implementation is the most important.
Now, on that note, do you think implementation of certain projects were the biggest mistakes made back then?
There were things that were started halfway, and after I stepped down, they were not continued. And because they were not continued, today, in order to do it, the cost has gone up more than double. So it is important to try and finish work as soon as possible, because all the time there will be an increase in price of building materials or whatever. So if you delay a project, you will have to pay more.
So what would you say are the key learnings there?
Well, always plan to do things at some speed to complete it as early as possible. There are contractors who undertake to build certain things and give a period of maybe 3 years, but who complete it in less than 3 years. Time means money in business, but not so fast as to lower standards or to do things, give a shoddy work, no drop in quality. We wanted a lot of foreigners to come in and start business based on IT. At that time, there were not many people in Malaysia who had the know-how to go into this kind of business. We had to depend upon foreign investors and foreign people, and in order to attract them, we had to make it attractive through providing an area where they can work, stay in the country much longer, no hassle about getting visas every now and again. So we make things comfortable for the investors, and that is how you promote any particular place.
What was the biggest challenge in setting it up?
First of all, the idea that you should have a particular area where this kind of business should be located. We had to study how good is that area, why should it be that particular area, and as you know, we decided on an area that extends from Kuala Lumpur to the airport, KLIA. This is because it makes travel very easy, and this part of the country is very well developed. Infrastructure is already in existence. So all these factors taken into consideration in deciding where to put the multimedia super corridor.
Now, Tun, during the Asian financial crisis, you pegged the Malaysian ringgit to the US dollar. Many people said this was a crazy maverick move, but it worked. What was the thinking behind this and the planning again?
Basically, the reason for the economic trouble we had at that time was the uncertainty with regard to the value of the ringgit based on the exchange rate with the US dollar. People cannot do business when things are uncertain. It is much better if we have a currency that is known, that is strong, and the value is known over a period of time. So we decided, since the currency traders were playing around with our ringgit, that we should have a ringgit that is fixed in terms of exchange rate with the US dollar. And to do that, we need to have the central bank make certain rules with regard to the management of our currency. The idea is to make the exchange rate stable. And we decided at that time the best rate was 3.8 to the US dollar, and we guaranteed that if you bring a US dollar, we will give you 3.8 ringgit. And if you bring 3.8 ringgit to the bank will exchange it with US dollar. This has got to be ensured, and we had sufficient reserves of US dollar to meet the needs of the business people. It was possible to ensure that the value of the currency doesn't move up or down. And we also put into ensured that the central bank will not allow currency trading. If you want money to do business, yes. But if we just want to sell currency or buy currency, we would not allow it. And this we did through the banks.
Now, we noticed ever since you stepped down, you're an advisor to companies like Petronas, Proton. What motivated you to do this? Instead of just retiring and relaxing, you want to do more?
I am still the advisor to Proton and Petronas. I don't really have that much influence. They can accept my advice or they can reject it. I have no way of enforcing my views. But I think that's all right. For an advisor, you must accept that sometimes your advice is taken, sometimes your advice is rejected.
Tun, what would you say to your critics who say you made the wrong people rich during your time in office?
Whoever ever becomes rich, people who fail would think that it's the wrong people. They should be the rich ones. So this is normal. I mean, people envy rich people. And whoever becomes rich becomes a target. And if they happen to know me, then they will say, well, it is because he knew the Prime Minister. But how else can we enrich the people? It doesn't matter who. The moment somebody succeeds, the rest will say, oh, he's favored, he's unfair, that he should get it. But when they get it, others will say the same about them. Well, we hope that they will live in a country that is peaceful, that gives a lot of opportunities for them to work, maybe do business. Generally, of course, I would like to see this country making progress, being very stable and peaceful. That's all that one can expect for their environment.
And final question, what's your advice for all aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
The most important thing is to acquire experience before going into any business, and don't try to copy some successful business because if you have no experience, you're going to fail. So acquire experience as much as possible.
Well, the final piece of business advice by Tun: knowledge is power, so gain experience first. As usual, if you do want to give us some feedback on our Facebook website, please do. Other than that, on behalf of Astro, Awani and Entrepreneur, I'd like to thank Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, former Prime Minister of Malaysia, for being on our show today and giving us all some great business advice. Selamat Hari Merdeka Malaysia, and we'll catch you next week. Okay, Tun, quick questions. First question, favorite food?
Yeah. Favorite food? Well,
it's a thinker, isn't it?
I don't know. I like so much, all kinds of food.
Okay, what are you going to have for dinner tonight?
Maybe satay or something.
Okay, we'll take that as satay. Favorite sports car?
Favorite sports car?
Yes. Or favorite car?
Lotus, of course, because I'm advisor to Proton.
Okay, that's a very, very interesting answer. And next question, the best place to relax for a holiday in Malaysia?
Malaysia, best place. I think there is a hotel in the hills, in Bukit Tinggi, and I think that is a place very quiet, no traffic. I think that is the place to go if you want to relax.
So peaceful and quiet. Okay, that's a good holiday advice. And the book that you're reading at the moment?
Well, I'm reading about the last war, and this a story entitled Crossings, involving diplomats and business people.
Okay. Very historical and very knowledgeable. And final question, what would you do with only RM1 in your wallet?
Well, I hope there is something that can be bought with RM1. Not many things today. Maybe hawker food or something.
Hawker food. Okay, RM1 hawker food. That's what Tun would do with RM1. Thank you very much, Tun.